So today, we're digging into something really cool, Aristotle's personal blueprints for storytelling and persuasion. We're going to unpack two of his biggest works, the Poetics and the Rhetoric, and as you'll see, these ancient guides are, believe it or not, more relevant than ever. I mean, think about it for a second. That feeling you get, the chills at the end of a really great movie, or the way a single powerful speech can literally change the course of history. These things can feel like magic. But more than 2,000 years ago, Aristotle set out to figure out how that magic actually works. He wanted to get under the hood and understand what art is, how it affects us, and how simple words can move entire nations. All right, let's dive right in. Now, to really get a grip on these books, you have to realize they weren't just some random thoughts he jotted down. For Aristotle, this was all part of one huge interconnected project, a project to understand what it even means to be human.
See, he wasn't just some literary critic or a debate club coach. He was a philosopher trying to tackle the biggest questions out there. How do you live a good life? And how do we build a good society where people can flourish? To him, understanding art and argument were absolutely essential pieces of that massive puzzle.
And this, right here, shows you his whole method perfectly. He starts small with the individual in his book Ethics. Then he zooms out to the community in his Poetics. But then he asks a crucial question. How do we even make sense of this life? Well, that's where the Poetics comes in. It's all about how stories shape our understanding. And finally, the big one, how do we get that community to actually do something to make things better? That, my friends, is the Rhetoric. You see, it all just flows together. So let's kick things off with stories. The Poetics is, and this is no exaggeration, the founding document of literary theory in the Western world. For centuries, it has shaped how we think about plays, novels, movies, you name it. And he did all that in only about 50 pages that survived. Incredible. The big idea at the center of it all is a concept called mimesis. Now, you'll often see this translated as imitation, but honestly, that's kind of misleading. Aristotle didn't think art was just a Xerox copy of reality. He saw it as a powerful lens. It represents what people do in a way that shows us a deeper pattern, a hidden truth about ourselves. And this idea leads him to one of his most famous and kinda controversial claims. He flat out argued that poetry, and he meant all creative stories really, is actually more profound, more philosophical than history. That's a pretty bold statement, isn't it? So what on earth did he mean by that? Well, think of it this way. History is all about the specifics. It tells you exactly what this person did on this particular day. But poetry or stories, they get at universal truths. They show us the kinds of things that could happen to people like us. And in doing so, they reveal something fundamental about being human. It's not about the one-off event. It's about the universal pattern that we can all recognize. And what's the emotional payoff for experiencing this powerful art? Aristotle had a special word for it, catharsis. You know that feeling after watching a super intense, moving drama where you just feel a sense of release, maybe even clarity? That's catharsis. The story takes you through these powerful emotions like pity and fear, and in the end, it kind of purges them, leaving you with a deeper sense of understanding. Okay, now what's really fascinating here is how Aristotle ranked the different parts of a tragedy. I mean, today, we are completely obsessed with character, right? But for Aristotle, plot was number one, the most important thing. He actually called it the soul of the tragedy. For him, the structure of events, the story itself, was way more important than any single character inside of it. Now let's switch gears. If the Poetics is about understanding the world through story, then the Rhetoric is all about changing the world through argument. This is Aristotle's definitive guide to the art of persuasion. I want you to notice how careful that definition is. For Aristotle, rhetoric is not about manipulation. It's not about winning an argument at any cost. No, for him, it was a skill of discovery. It's the art of finding the best, most truthful arguments you can in any situation. This view put him in direct conflict with these popular teachers of his day called the Sophists. The Sophists were notorious for teaching people tricks, how to make the weaker argument appear the stronger. Aristotle thought that was completely wrong. He was convinced that rhetoric was this incredibly powerful tool that had to be used for good, to serve truth and justice. At the very heart of his entire theory are these three legendary modes of persuasion. He said that any effective argument has to appeal to all three: ethos, pathos, and logos. They're like the three legs of a stool.
You take one away, and the whole thing just collapses.
So first up, you've got ethos. That's the appeal to character. It's all about the credibility of the person speaking. I mean, it's just common sense, right? We are far more likely to be persuaded by someone we trust, someone we think knows what they're talking about and actually cares about us. Think about why you trust a review from your favorite critic over some random person online. That's ethos, right there.
Next, there's pathos, the appeal to emotion. Aristotle was no fool. He knew we aren't just logic-driven robots. A really good argument has to connect with an audience's feelings, with their values. Now, this isn't about using cheap emotional tricks. It's about stirring up emotions that are actually fitting for the moment, like that sense of compassion you feel when you see an effective charity ad.
And finally, we have logos, the appeal to reason. This is the argument itself, the cold, hard logic, the evidence, the facts. Aristotle called this the body of persuasion, because no matter how trustworthy you seem or how emotionally moving your speech is, if the core argument doesn't hold up, if it doesn't make sense, it's eventually going to fall flat. So, okay, we've got stories that help us understand life, and we have arguments that help us take action. Let's bring this all home and see how it all clicks together. And here is the core thesis, the most important point of all. For Aristotle, these are two sides of the very same coin. Stories give us the empathy and the wisdom to understand our shared human journey. And rhetoric gives us the tools to act on that understanding, to actually go out and build a better community. One is pretty useless without the other. And really, that's the ultimate takeaway here. Aristotle believed we are fundamentally rational creatures, and we are social creatures. And what's the one thing that connects those two parts of our nature? Language. The ability to craft a story, to build an argument. That's not just a neat party trick. It's central to who we are. It is how we make sense of our own lives and how we shape the future we all share. Which leaves us with one last thought to chew on. In our world today, a world that is just flooded with misinformation, deep fakes, and digital filter bubbles, a world where it's getting harder and harder to know who to trust or what's even real, well, maybe this ancient blueprint for telling true stories and making honest arguments isn't just a history lesson. Maybe it's exactly what we need, right here, right now.